Hello and welcome to the first episode of the EFL Digest, your place for all things English Football League. On today's episode, we're going to be looking at the Burnley-Sunderland draw, the PNE thrashing of Blackpool, and the Morecambe 5-0 loss away at Barnsley. That is all today on the EFL Digest. So hello from me, Hopey, and welcome to the EFL Digest. Today, we're going to be looking at the last 2 days of action in the EFL, and I look forward to today's match at Wembley Stadium, which is the EFL Trophy, the Papa John's Cup final between Bolton Wanderers and Plymouth Argyle. So, to start off with, we're going to be looking at Friday, March 31st, where we had 3 games of the EFL. We had a championship game and 2 games over in League 2. And all 3 of them, surprisingly, ended in a draw. Burnley, at home to Sunderland, ended in a 0-0 draw. Stockport County ended in a 1-1 draw at home against Salford City, with Lemon High Evans scoring in the 6th minute and Hendry scoring in the 51st minute. And we also had another draw over at Tranmere against Harrogate Town. Oxley scored an own goal for Harrogate Town in the 36th minute, leading to Tranmere Rovers drawing against Harrogate, with Armstrong scoring in the 4th minute for Harrogate Town. Then moving on to a little roundup of Saturday's matches, we had quite a big day in the EFL. We had Luton winning 2-0 at home against Watford. Preston thrashed Blackpool at home in a 3-1 victory. Birmingham beat Blackburn in a 1-0 win at home. Reading drew away to Bristol City. Cardiff were beaten by Swansea at home in a 3-2 game that ended 3-2 to Swansea. Stoke thrashed Coventry at home, that being Coventry's home at the Coventry Arena. Coventry lost at home 4-0 against Stoke. Huddersfield won at home 4-2 against Middlesbrough. Hull drew at home to Rotherham 0-0. Norwich lost at home to Sheffield United in a 1-0 victory to Sheffield. Millwall West Brom ended 0-0 at West Brom's ground. And Wigan won at home in a massive shock against QPR. Over to League 1, Barnsley won at home 5-0 against Morecambe. Charlton won at home against Shrewsbury 6-0. Burton drew away to Cheltenham 0-0. Derby lost at home to Ipswich in a 2-0 victory. Fleetwood drew at home to Exeter 2-2. Peterborough drew at home Oxford 0-0. Port Vale lost at home in a massive shock for relegation side Cambridge, where they won 2-0, beating Port Vale in a shocker. Portsmouth won at home to Forest Green. No shocks there. 1-0. Sheffield Wednesday drew at home to Lincoln in a shock. 1-1. Wickham drew at home 2-2 to MK Dons in another massive shock. Over to League 2. Bradford won at home 3-2 against Grimsby. Wimbledon lost at home to Rochdale in another shocker. Barrow won at home 2-1 against Gillingham. Newport and Colchester drew. Doncaster lost to Crewe at home. Crewe winning 2-0 at the Doncaster Stadium. At Doncaster's home. Hartlepool won 2-1 at home against Swindon. Leyton Orient won at home against Carlisle. Mansfield thrashed Crawley 4-1 at Mansfield. Northampton drew at home to Stevenage. And Walsall drew to Sutton United. So on to today's looking. So today we're going to be taking a little look at 3 of the fixtures in the Championship of Huddersfield, Coventry and Preston. Then on to League 1, we're going to be looking a little bit more closely at Barnsley and Morecambe. Then a little bit closer look at Charlton and Port Vale as well. And then on to League 2, we're going to be taking a little closer look at Bradford, Hartlepool and Barrow's matches yesterday. All that's still to come on the EFL Digest. So yesterday at Huddersfield, there was a massive shock where Huddersfield, a relegation side in the Championship, won 4-2 at home against Middlesbrough, with the scorers for Huddersfield being Ruffles, Karoma and Pearson scored 2 in the 57th and 66th minute. There was 20,000 in attendance. The referee was John Busby, and it was at the John Smith Stadium, the home of Huddersfield Town. In the match, there were 4 yellow cards for Jack Rudoni, Hayden Hackney, Josh Karoma, and Tom Smith, all getting yellow cards. 2 for Huddersfield and 2 for Middlesbrough. In yesterday's match, Neil Warnock came head-to-head with Michael Carrick, and Neil Warnock took the win. Which is, to be honest, it's quite a good win for Huddersfield, that. With them being so low down in the table, that could have done them quite well. Just taking a little look at the table, currently. Where do Huddersfield sit? So Huddersfield currently sit 22nd in the table, with Middlesbrough sitting at 3rd. Middlesbrough having goal difference of 25 and points of 67, whereas down at the bottom of the league, down in 22, we've got a minus 19 goal difference for Huddersfield and a 39 points. So really, taking a little closer look at that game, it was absolutely massive for Huddersfield. It's a good little win there, which puts them further ahead than Blackpool and Wigan, with Wigan sitting at the bottom with a minus 25 goal difference and a 34 points, and Blackpool being minus 20 and on 35 points, which edges them ever closer to jumping out of that relegation zone, where their current closest rivals are Cardiff City, sitting at a minus 14 points difference. Minus 14 goal difference and 39 points. So realistically, if Cardiff lose their next game and Huddersfield win their next game, they're going to leapfrog, which they will try and close the gap on Rotherham United, who are currently sat in 20th place with 41 points. So Huddersfield will be looking to capitalise on their next game, which is Watford. Watford away, which looks to be quite a bit of a tricky one for Huddersfield, because Watford, to be honest, Watford aren't actually doing that well in the league this year. They currently sit at 11th in the table, just below P&E and just above Sunderland. So really, Watford will be wanting to capitalise on the next game, because they'll be wanting to jump into those playoff places, which is, to be honest, it's quite close for them, because currently Blackburn Rovers sit at the bottom of the playoffs with 61 points, whereas Watford sit 6 points away. So 2 wins away, realistically, if Blackburn go on to lose their next 2 games. 2 wins away from jumping into that playoff spot. So Watford will be looking at the results around them and will be wanting to beat Huddersfield at their next game on April the 7th. Will Huddersfield win? Can they leave part of that relegation zone? Who knows? Now on to a closer look at Coventry City and Stoke City, where they were smashed 4-0 at home against Stoke at the Coventry Building Society Arena. 23,625 in attendance, with the scorers being Brown, Campbell, Smallbone and Huiver. There were 2 yellow cards in the game, both for Coventry City. Hamer and Michael Rose both receiving yellow cards. Currently, Coventry City sit at 8th in the table, and Stoke City sit at 13th, with Stoke City being on 51 points and Coventry being on 57. So this being quite a close game. Well, sorry, quite a close matchup in the Championship table. But for looking at the scoreline, you wouldn't really think there was much chance there. Stoke City really made Coventry City look quite amateur. Just going in and taking over at home. And realistically, if Coventry could have won that game, they might have been looking at a playoff spot. Looking at it, they may have been sitting in the playoff spot, either 5th or 6th. It would have been quite a good game for them yesterday. Unfortunately, they did lose that 4-0 loss against Stoke City. Stoke City currently sitting underneath Sunderland and just above Bristol City, my apologies, in 14th place. So Stoke City, again, similar to Coventry City, will be looking at either staying in mid-table, maintaining that mid-table place, or they'll be pushing, wanting that playoff space to go back to the Premier League. And finally, we'll take a look at that massive West Lancashire derby. 3-1. Preston thrashed Blackpool yesterday, with the scorers for P&E being Potts, Whiteman and Cannon, with Yates scraping one back in the 89th minute for Blackpool. Currently, Preston, P&E sit at 10th in the table with 56 points. And as I said before, Blackpool are currently set at 23rd with 35 points. So not looking good for the Seasiders, really. Not looking good for the Tangerine Army at the minute. With P&E, to be honest, storming their way up the Championship table. I wouldn't be, it wouldn't feel weird for me to say that P&E could probably be pushing for those playoff spots. And it would be nice to see a Blackburn P&E rivalry here, fighting for those playoff spaces. It'd be nice to see two West Lancashire teams fighting for that space. But you never know what's going to happen. Blackburn could slip. P&E could slip. We don't know what's going to happen there. So currently in the table, we are seeing Burnley storming ahead up front with 84 points. But before that, we're going to talk about the different yellow cards that are in the game. So there were quite a lot of yellow cards here, from what I'm seeing. Brad Potts was shown a yellow. Liam Lindsay, Daniel Johnson. And for Blackpool, we've got Callum Connolly, Charlie Patino, the ever so famous Charlie Patino. He didn't know a place to go, unfortunately, yesterday because his team got thrashed, unfortunately. Curtis Nelson also was shown a yellow yesterday in extra time. And on to League One now. Barnsley thrashed Morecambe yesterday, 5-0. To be honest, I was in attendance as I am a Morecambe fan. And I'll be honest, not the best day out for Morecambe Football Club. So, we've not really had much recently. It's not been great. But onto the scorers for Barnsley. We had Cole scoring 2. One in the 4th minute, one in the 53rd. Our own Simiu scoring an own goal, unfortunately. Herbie Kane in the 32nd and Thomas in the 90th minute. So we were over at Oakwell. There's 11,519 in attendance with over 280 shrimps in attendance, me being included. The game, I'm going to talk about it from a personal perspective now. Shambles. It really was an absolute shambles. Morecambe, at the minute, Morecambe are struggling massively. We currently sit 22nd in the league, I'm fairly sure, at this current time. Yes, we're 22nd in the league with 34 points and a minus 31 goal difference. Morecambe at the minute, we're really struggling. Really, really struggling. You can see it in the lads' eyes. You can see from the way they're playing. The lads just, I just don't think it's working. I don't think the team's coming together. I don't think the team are playing as a team. I feel like they're really a bunch of individuals, it looks like. With some there are some standouts, I'll be honest. Daniel Crowley, massive standout. Unfortunately, he just doesn't seem to be doing much with the ball. He's getting it, he's doing some impressive plays, but he just doesn't seem to be scoring. Cole Stockton, a player who is massively, massively out of form this season. Last season, he played fantastically well, but this year, I just don't see Cole Stockton really being a contender for player of the season. My player of the season is goalkeeper Connor Ripley. Every time I've seen that lad play, he's playing for the shirt, he's playing for the badge, he's doing really, really well. He just seems to love the club, really. I can see that in the way he plays, in the passion he shows. Connor Ripley does seem to truly love Morecambe and truly love playing for that shirt. But some of the other players, I don't know if I can see it. Like, we are struggling. There are a couple of players who I think are struggling. Nias. I know he's been out of play. I know we signed him as a free agent and he's not really been doing much for this whole season. But I'm not really seeing much promise. Another lad who I really think is struggling currently, Jensen Weir. Jensen Weir seems to be struggling. He used to do really, really well. I've seen in recent times he's not been doing that great. Scored an own goal at one of the thrashings recently at Charlton. He scored an own goal. It could have been avoided, but We know we have off days, but for Jensen Weir, it just seems these off days keep coming and coming. And then, yeah, we just got a few other lads who maybe aren't pulling the weight as much. Jacob Badowie struggling. There are current rumours that he might be getting poached by Stephen Robinson over at St Mirren. If that did happen, I don't know if that would be a huge loss for the Shrimps, really. But then we do have a glimmer of hope in young lad Adam Mayer. Yesterday he came on along with Ashley Hunter, and the two of them, if I'm honest, changed the game in a way. Morecambe played a lot more attacking football in the second half, and it was a lot more impressive than what was on offer for the whole of the first half. But enough about Morecambe. Let's get on to Charlton Athletic, who smashed Shrewsbury at home at the Valley 6-0, with referee Morecambe favourite Robert Madley, in charge of that game, and 13,241 in attendance. The scorers for Charlton Athletic: Fraser, Morgan, Saki, Leeburn, scoring 2 and scoring a pen in the 70th minute, and Bonnie, scoring in the 90th minute. And currently, Shrewsbury Town sit at 10th with 55 points, and Charlton sit at 12th with 52 points. So that is edging Charlton Athletic ever closer to that playoff spot. And the playoff spots in League One are very, very close. Currently, we've got Peterborough United sat at the bottom of the playoffs, with Bolton Wanderers above them, Barnsley and Ipswich Town, with respective points being 78 for Ipswich, 75 for Barnsley, 64 for Bolton, and also 64 for Peterborough, with Derby County just sitting out of that race with 64 points again. So it's very close for these three teams. Bolton Wanderers not playing League One football for a short little while, just due to the EFL trophy that's happening today, the EFL final over at Wembley. So good luck to both Bolton Wanderers and Plymouth Argyle fans when they play that. We'll talk a little bit more about that later and do a little match preview before that kicks off later on today. Peterborough United also sat at 64 points as well. Peterborough United are also on a little run of form. However, they did draw 0-0 to Oxford yesterday. So maybe that little run of form might be coming to a little bit of an end. So currently, Charlton Athletic do sit just outside of that playoff zone, and as do Shrewsbury, with Shrewsbury above them being Portsmouth on 61 points and Exeter being just below them on 53. Charlton also sit behind on 52, with Exeter City above them again on 53 points and Fleetwood Town sitting below them on 50. And finally in the League One section, we move on to Port Vale, who was surprisingly smashed by Cambridge United. They were at home at Vale Park. The referee was Tom Reeves and was 6,730 in attendance. Cambridge United currently sitting down in that relegation zone, just above Morecambe. Sorry, just below Morecambe. Even more shocking. Below Morecambe at 23rd place on 33 points, where Port Vale sit at 17th on 45 points. That's a big result for Cambridge. Absolutely massive result for Cambridge there. Pushing them, potentially getting close to getting out of that relegation zone. It gives them all the points they need. Because they're doing something that us Shrimps can't. They're winning away. The away form is absolutely damning for Morecambe. But for Cambridge, that doesn't seem to be a problem, with Smith and Jones scoring. Sounds like a Doctor Who episode, that. Smith and Jones. Any Doctor Who fans out there, leave it down in the comments. So, we also have to go over some of the yellow cards in League One. So back to Barnsley for Morecambe. Liam Kitchen being yellow carded in the 39th minute. For Charlton, it was Stephen Sessignon who was yellow carded, and William Forrester, Tom Pett and Funso Ojo being yellow carded in the Port Vale camp. And over to League 2 now. Bradford City winning at home against Grimsby Town at the University of Bradford Stadium. Charles Breakspear took charge of that game, and there was 19,011 in attendance at the University of Bradford Stadium, with Gilead, Walker and Cook both all scoring for Bradford. Holohan and Smith both scoring for Grimsby Town. But Bradford did take that win. Currently sat in 6th place in League 2. Just above Salford City and underneath Stockport County in that playoff charge. All of these teams wanting that spot in League 1 next season. And as for Grimsby, they are currently sat at 15th in the table with 48 points. But looking closer at that playoff charge, that playoff table, currently have Carlisle United sat at the top on 66 points, Stockport on 64, Bradford also on 64, and Salford just below on 63. The relegation fight is between Hartlepool and Rochdale. We'll be taking a little closer look at Hartlepool in a second, but Rochdale currently sat at the bottom of the table on 29 points, just after sacking manager Jim Bentley. They currently are on a minus 25 goal difference, as are Hartlepool United. But both of these teams this weekend scoring. Rochdale on that new manager bounce with a 1-0 win away at Wimbledon. And Hartlepool winning at home, beating Swindon 2-1. And let's take a little closer look at that. So Hartlepool, Jennings scored and Finney scored for Hartlepool United, with Hepburn Murphy scoring for Swindon Town, with Little Vane over at the Suit Direct Stadium over in Hartlepool, with Carl Boyson taking charge of that game with a 4,815 attendance over in the League 2 match. Swindon currently sit up in 11th place on 51 points, whereas, like I said, Hartlepool are in 23rd with 35 points. So a massive, massive win for Hartlepool there. A massive win that keeps them potentially close to jumping out of that relegation zone. Currently only 2 points behind 22nd Crawley Town. Could Crawley push, could Crawley fall into that relegation fight? It remains to be seen, as these relegation fights are always changing in all of the different leagues. So, taking a little final look at Barrow and Gillingham. Barrow winning at home at the Sol Eagle Stadium, with Declan Bourne taking charge of that game with a 3,703 attendance. Morris scoring an own goal for Gillingham, and Gotts scoring for Barrow to put the nail in Gillingham's coffin at the 90th minute, with Masterson scoring in the 82nd for Gillingham. Currently, Barrow sit at 9th in the table on 58 points, pardon me, and 19th are Gillingham on 44 points. So a big gap there. A big gap, but a close scoreline. One more goal from Gillingham, and that could have only been a point for Barrow. So really, Gillingham, other than the own goals, must have played quite well. Even though we may have lost, it's still quite a close game. It was not like not like Gillingham came to Barrow and got an absolute stuffing, because he didn't. It seems to be quite a close game. The momentum seems to be mainly in Gillingham's court. So Gillingham went to Barrow and gave them a good hard game, really. So it was only really at 90th minute that Barrow put the nail in Gillingham's coffin, leaving it quite late for Barrow. So that was a little look at the 3 different tiers of EFL football. That being the Championship, League 1 and League 2. So thank you very much for listening to today's episode. And we are going to finish off with a little look at today's massive game in the EFL. We have Bolton versus Plymouth in the EFL Trophy final over at Wembley Stadium, with it looks to be over 73,000 fans in attendance. A couple of my friends are going. We've got, I'm going to give a couple of shout outs now to Jack Worthington, Luke Edmondson, and a couple of my friends, Theo Ogden, Fogden, as he's very well known, and Stephen Ogden, his father, Fogdad. So hope the guys have a good day today over at Wembley Stadium. You never know what's going to happen. Me as a Morecambe fan, having a little close rivalry with Bolton, would like to see a Plymouth win, but Pie Face will be happy with that one. So, thank you all very much for watching today's episode of the EFL Digest, and I will see you all next week. Goodbye.